Hi, this is the voice, Michael Chavello. You're listening to the Premium Oddscast, hosted by leading MMA Oddsmaker Nick Kalikas, fight scientist and author of Fightnomics, Kuhn, and MMA Journalist Brian Hemminger. The absolute best UFC betting info, picks, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting, MMAOddsbreaker.com.
Welcome to the Premium Oddscast, presented by Five Dimes. I'm Brian Hemminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts line setter Nick Kalikas and fight scientist Kuhn to break down this weekend's UFC Fight Night 37 event, which takes place Saturday afternoon at the O2 Arena in London, England. If you're unfamiliar with our format, myself and Nick will be breaking down the fight card from top to bottom, giving a profile and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Reed will be stepping in and offering his expansive numerical insight on all fights with sufficient data. For this event, Reed will be able to contribute on 3 of the 10 overall bouts. Briefly looking back at the last event, our premium bets for the Ultimate Fighter China finale went 1-2 for a 2.45 unit loss. Our underdog bet on Matt Mitrione hit, but our plays on Nam Fan and Michael Kuiper from Titan FC 27 failed to cash. Also, our free play, a 2-unit parlay on Kurt Hollabaugh and Mike Richmond, failed to cash after Richmond lost a close decision at Bellator 110 against Desmond Green. Now back to the present, UFC Fight Night 37 features a 10-fight card in total and will be aired on the UFC Fight Pass network, starting around noon Eastern time on this Saturday. Let's dive right in. Now, opening up the night will be a flyweight contest featuring Luis Gaudino, who's 6-3 overall, taking on Phil Harris, who is 22-11. Now, Nick, where'd you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Well, Gaudino opened the favorite, minus 175. The comeback on Harris, plus 135. Looking at the line over 5 dimes, it's staying pretty ballpark. Gaudino is now minus 165. The comeback, plus 145 on Harris. So basically just got a little bit tighter. So decent action on both sides, keeping the line steady. So two-way support on this fight, which is kind of what you want as far as the sportsbooks go, because I think this fight is, man, it's a tough one to call, really. I'm going to lean slightly towards Gaudino here, based on his striking. I think he's the better fighter if he could keep the fight upright, and he can kind of pick things apart as far as Harris goes, because if Harris lacks anything, it is his striking game. I mean, he does have a little bit of power on the feet, but his stand-up overall is really not that special. He does have a nice lead jab. He throws some solid kicks. He likes to push forward, but again, he's kind of slow, and he's not very effective with his striking game. Harris's highlights for me is his ground game. He really hasn't displayed it that much in the UFC, but that being said, he is the better grappler in this spot, by far, I think. He's underrated, actually, with his wrestling and grappling. He's got decent takedowns, control, and he always looks to attack with subs once he gets you in a bad spot. So that's kind of going to be Harris's key to win this. If he can get Gaudino down, he can control him, maybe even possibly look for that sub, do some ground and pound. But more times than not, I do think that Gaudino is probably going to be able to keep the fight standing. And if he does, again, he's going to have the ability to kind of outpoint Harris. Gaudino has a little bit of underrated power on the feet as well, because of he's kind of technical. So it goes a long way with a little bit of speed and good technique. And he does have some solid kickboxing overall. He mixes his attack up well. Now, on the ground, for being a striking-based fighter, Gaudino is not totally lost. But again, that's going to be his weakness. He's been manhandled, especially recently, with his losses on the ground, so that's an area he does want to avoid. But I think he's been working on that. He knows what Harris brings to the table, so you got to side with him slightly here. But again, it's not a confident spot, especially in an opening fight here. So my lean is Gaudino, but not very confident.
Yeah, and I agree that Gaudino should win this fight. I mean, you look at him, 29 years old. He's a Tiger Schulman fighter. He's really durable, has a great chin. I mean, he was in there against John Lineker, eating all of his best shots in a big, nasty brawl and came out the better for it. I think he's a little more scrappy brawler type on the feet. I mean, he does have technique, but he kind of throws it out the window sometimes when he just bites down on the mouthpiece and moves forward. He has really solid cardio, so you know he can go for the full 15 minutes if need be, and he can do it at a high pace, which is really important because he usually does push a really high pace. Now, the things to worry about with Gaudino, of course, are a really long layoff. He's been out for a very long time. He's only fought once in the last 2.5 years about, and it was a he received a beatdown from Tim Elliott. So has a lot of ring rust. He hasn't had a lot of success recently whatsoever, and he's a bit injury prone. So those are some things to watch out for. And on top of that, in his 2 UFC losses, I mean, he has absolutely gotten destroyed by Johnny Bedford and Tim Elliott. I mean, he just took a pounding in both of those fights. And he has some issues fighting off his back. So if he gets taken down, he could be in some trouble. Now, the problem here for Harris is I'm not sure he'll be able to take advantage of that. 30 years old, he does have a lot of experience, and while he is decent on the ground with submissions and has some pretty good ground and pound, I'm not really sure how good that offensive wrestling is to get this fight to the ground, because Godno was taken advantage of by some better wrestlers than Harris. And what Harris does have going for him is he comes on strong late. He has pretty good cardio, and his activity rate actually increases. I mean, that's how he got his 1 UFC win over Ulysses Gomez after a slow start, because for the cons for Harris, very slow starter, which is something that Godno will probably take advantage of early. And he does not have very good striking defense. In fact, he ignores most of the low kicks. So if Godno goes low, then he's going to just have a feasting on the legs of Harris. And, honestly, when you looked at Harris's last fight against John Lineker, he didn't look like he belonged in the same cage as him, and just got absolutely destroyed, finished with a body shot. It was not a pretty sight, unless you're a John Lineker fan. So, looking at this fight, I really think that as long as Godno keeps it on the feet and starts strong, shakes off the ring rust early, then he'll be fine. If he's tentative and hesitant, then Harris could come on late, but my pick is Luis Godno. Now, do the numbers back us up, Reed?
Yeah, they do. It's difficult on this one because there's no clear indicators popping off the page, really. Each fighter only has 3 fights. They've lost 2, won 1. Defensively, they haven't been very good. They've both been knocked down. Phil Harris especially has been dropped 3 times already. His striking stats are terrible. But I think part of that is who he's fought. And so I'm not even really sure if we've seen the best of him. And then on the ground, Luis Godno has really been outworked on the ground. He's spent most of his time on his back, and that hasn't helped his cause. So it's hard to find an area where there's a consistent mismatch that tells a story that one of them is going to defeat the other. It's kind of a toss-up. Just as it starts, there may be a lot of looking at each other because both guys don't tend to outwork their opponents. They tend to wait back a little bit, be counter strikers. But we do have to say that Godno's striking is definitely more precise. He's got a karate background. Those guys tend to be very accurate with their hands. So that is his advantage. But his defense isn't very good. And on the flip side, Harris, while terribly inaccurate, his defense is actually quite good. So this is a weird kind of, they both play into each other's weaknesses, and yet neither one has the strength to take advantage of it fully. So it's mostly a coin flip. I think just overall, Godno has a few more advantages on paper at least, but it's definitely a low confidence pick.
Now moving on to a welterweight contest, we have Igor Araujo, who's 24-6 with 1 no contest, taking on UFC newcomer Danny Mitchell, who is 14-4-1. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Well, Araujo opens -190 to come back on Mitchell +150. And again, looking over at 5 dimes right now, Araujo's -170. The comeback is +150. So not a lot of movement. I think there hasn't been a lot of back and forth action on this fight because a lot of people are confused. I mean, the line seems to be steady. The line seems to be okay because I would give Araujo the slight lean in this spot. A lot of it is based on his past experience, who he's been in, obviously the octagon or ring with, whatever you want to say there. And his grappling ability. This should probably turn into a grappling match because that's what both of these guys excel at. Getting into Araujo first, of course, you gotta give him credit. He was a big underdog against Alcantara in his last bout. A lot of people didn't expect to see him do what he did, but a lot of that was actually because Alcantara faded in that fight and his cardio was so bad. But still give Araujo credit. I mean, on the feet, he's really nothing special. I mean, he's improving, but definitely it's not his strong points. Of course, again, his grappling is his best attribute. He has decent takedowns, good scrambles and subs. He's got decent overall abilities, even off his back, on top, of course, so he can scramble out and get where he wants to be in certain spots, but he still has tendency to make some mistakes, and not exactly the greatest fight IQ, even on the ground. But that being said, looking over at Mitchell, now he's one of these guys that on the feet, he actually does have something to offer a little bit more so than Araujo, because he's one of these long, rangy strikers. He has a decent clinch game. He works his knees well, elbows well. He uses lead jab pretty good. But he kind of swings a little wild and aggressive at times, and it leaves openings. His defense is very flawed. Now, that being said, I don't think it's something that Araujo is going to take advantage of, because his striking is just not there. But still, I think this fight ends up getting to the ground at one point or another, and that's where both of these guys, again, their strong points are. So we're going to see a pretty exciting grappling match back and forth. And getting back into Mitchell, I mean, he does have excellent submissions. He's kind of sneaky, and he's unorthodox with them too. So he's like one of these exciting grapplers that you want to watch because you're not sure what he's going to pull off. So he uses his ground game in all angles, on top, from the bottom. I mean, again, long, lanky limbs also helps his game. So this is going to be an interesting fight. I think it could realistically kind of go either way, but you got to sign with the Raja, or you got to side with him a little bit at least, because again, I think he is overall the more sound fighter, and he's proven himself a little bit more to me at this point. So the line where it's at now, again, seems to be steady, might be a little high, but again, it's hard to confidently bet the dog in this spot either. So I think it's one of those situations that you got to slightly lean towards the favorite and just let it go.
Yeah, I have to agree with this one. Araujo, 33 years old, Mitchell, 27. And Araujo, you also can't have to factor in the training. And Araujo's training at Greg Jackson's. And you saw some of that game planning ability in his last fight against a guy in Ildemar Alcantara that everyone thought was going to beat him easily. And he had a good game plan. He came in, he pressured Alcantara, he got him against the fence, he took him down. Granted, he did get aided a little bit by Alcantara's gas tank, but, he fought a smart fight, and I think he's going to fight a smart one here. Mitchell doesn't have much on the feet, but again, he can be a little wild and crazy, so I expect Araujo to just push forward, get inside, and either clinch against him and work dirty boxing, or just the wall install, or just take him down and get on top, because Araujo should have better wrestling, and I think even though Mitchell has that vaunted ground game and people are hyping that up a little bit, the cheesecake assassin, and he does have some pretty flashy submissions. I think he's got a flying armbar and a twister on his record. He also doesn't have the best submission defense. I mean, he was submitted relatively recently, and I think Araujo most likely should have the better ground game here on top of having the better wrestling. So what I see happening is Mitchell wings some bombs early, Araujo closes the distance, gets on top, and he'll probably either ride out a decision or he could potentially submit Mitchell because, again, there are several holes in Mitchell's game. So Mitchell will be game, but I just don't think it'll be enough. So moving on, we have a bantamweight contest featuring David Grant, who is 8-2 overall, taking on Roland Delorme, who is 9-2 with one no contest. So Nick, where'd you open this one, and how's public shifted things so far?
Well, this fight I opened exactly a pick on -120 either way when it did hit 5 dimes originally. And looking over at the line again, pretty solid because it's -110 either way. So just tighten up a little bit. And across the board, it looks like most places are about pick 'em as well. So this is a close competitive fight because these guys really do match up pretty well together. Delorme's been one of those guys that's always been a little bit under the radar, probably a little bit underrated overall in his career. And he continues to improve. Now his striking is not really that great on the feet. He does look to strike and close distance basically more times than not. That's kind of why he uses striking. He does have a decent left hook, which is impressive. I mean, he does have some power with it, and I mean, he has landed it in the past, so you gotta be cautious, I guess. That's his best attribute, I think, on the feet. But defensively, Delorme is tagged quite a bit, so that's always a concern. Now, the grappling aspect of the game for Delorme, it's pretty impressive. I mean, he has solid wrestling, not the greatest, but he does get takedowns when he wants it most times. And he does also scramble well and look to submit people off his back. So wherever you put Delorme on the ground, he's very comfortable. And he does love to work for a finish. So he's a guy, especially on your back. He loves to kind of scramble, get to your back, and try to sink in that rear naked choke. So he's a guy that you can't really underestimate, especially his ground game. That being said, I think the striking of Grant is going to probably be the difference here. I think even though he's only got 1 KO on his record, I think the guy, officially I should say, the guy has decent striking. I mean, that area of his game is definitely improving. He's fun to watch overall. He's got good hands. He's well-rounded with power and clinch work. I think he does a good job of, like, basically dirty boxing and, up against the cage. He looks to unload at times. He mixes things up well with his knees. And like I said, clinch work. And he has that killer instinct too. That's what I kind of like about him. He gets somebody in trouble. He looks for the kill. Now, the ground game though, he's not necessarily lost on the ground either. I think the ground game is going to actually be fun to watch if these guys scramble back and forth as well. I think that Grant's grappling, he has a decent wrestling base of his own. He's capable of hitting takedowns. He's got solid takedown defense, and he's dangerous off the bottom and top as well. So if you put him on his back, he can submit you, and of course he'd prefer to work top position. So Grant, very game, no matter where this fight takes place. And again, he's very well rounded and always improving. Now, his fight against Holdsworth, he was doing pretty good in that fight, until, actually Holdsworth started taking over and ended up getting the W there. But I do think this is a kind of a step down for Grant, because Holdsworth's something, really special, I think. He's got a lot of potential. He's a serious prospect. And Delorme, on the other hand, is just kind of one of these, not to disrespect the guy, but almost a gatekeeper role. So I think Grant's going to pass this test. I think it's going to be competitive. It'll get interesting at times, but overall, I think Grant's the better fighter. Again, he's got the better striking, and I think he's going to find a way to win this fight. So either by decision or either by late stoppage, Grant gets the W here, in my opinion.
Now I agree on this. Grant and Delorme, both pretty solid overall. Both guys are actually Ultimate Fighter veterans, with Grant being from season 18 and Delorme being from the season 14. Grant's 28, Delorme's 30, so not really much of an age advantage here. But in terms of, even though one's 8-2 and one's 9-2 with 1 no contest, I think Delorme has actually taken quite a bit more punishment than Grant has throughout his career. Delorme actually has a tendency to take a lot of damage in fights and then come back. He's pretty resilient, and his cardio is usually pretty solid, but that usually catches up to fighters. You just see it time and time again, the ones that are durable and known for it being able to take one to give one, that almost always catches up to him in the end. So this could be a case of that. Now, on the feet, I do think Grant should be the better fighter. Delorme has some power, but Grant's faster. Delorme is a little more slow and plodding, and I really don't think Grant will just stand right in front of him and let Delorme land those big shots that he's capable of throwing. And on the ground, both these guys are actually really solid ground fighters, but and while Delorme is a little bit stronger and maybe a little bit rangier, I think Grant should be able to hold his own there. He was holding his own against just about everybody in the Ultimate Fighter house except Holdsworth, who I think is an elite special guy at 135. And so if it goes to the ground, I think it'll be relatively even, and Grant can either take top position or get back to his feet where he wants to keep this fight anyway. So it'll all come down to if Delorme can get it to the ground, get on top, and stay on top. And I don't think he can. So my pick's David Grant. I'll keep it sweet and simple. So moving on, we have a middleweight contest featuring Bradley Scott, who is 10-2 overall, taking on Claudio Henrique da Silva, UFC newcomer, who is 9-1. So Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Well, I open up Scott minus 190 to come back on Da Silva plus 150. And again, another spot where you look over at 5 dimes at the time of the recording, at least, to stay in pretty ballpark. Scott's minus 185. The comeback is plus 160 on Da Silva. So again, another spot that got kind of a little bit tighter. And I'm sure the sportsbooks aren't getting a ton of action on this fight either. A little bit of probably back and forth action, keeping the line steady. A lot of people are probably confused on this spot. Before I even started getting into this, I actually thought that Da Silva was going to be a serious prospect, or, the UFC's bringing somebody in that could really move up the ladder at 185. Then looking into the footage, I wasn't that impressed at all with Da Silva. He's got some okay wins, I guess, on his resume, but overall, nothing's too special. His best attribute is definitely his ground game, but I'll get right into it with him. His striking, again, not very impressive. He is a southpaw, so that's at least something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, I guess, compared to most, but he's pretty wild on the feet, not very technical at all. Really, like I said, unimpressive. He's somewhat dangerous because he is so wild, and he's got a little bit of power. And he does mix in some hard leg kicks, but all his stand-up is basically, again, one of these guys that looks to just close the distance and get inside on you so he gets his takedown and his ground game going. So nothing really that much to offer, again, in the striking realm. But grappling, I mean, he's not very good with his takedowns, but he does have good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He does attack your back. He tries to get the floor, again, the fight to the floor, scrambles and tries to look for position, and he is very aggressive with his sub. So, I mean, in that aspect of the game, he does have, I believe, 6 submissions or so on his resume. So if he gets your back, if he does get in a position where he can finish the fight on the ground, more than likely he's going to do so. But looking over at Scott, I mean, his wrestling base is pretty solid. I mean, he's actually a little bit underrated overall. I know that, coming off of a pretty big win for him, over Michael Kuiper, he was a decent sized underdog. He looked very impressive even before he got that choke that he ended up ending the fight with. I mean, he was looking good in that fight. So Scott's one of these guys, again, that kind of flies under the radar, very underrated, but he's a very solid. And even at middleweight, I mean, he bumped up to middleweight back up to middleweight, I should say, for his last fight against Kuiper, and he was fine. Didn't look undersized at all. The guy looks good. So I think he's going to continue to improve and work his way up the ladder in the UFC, middleweight division. But starting here in this spot, I mean, on the feet, again, Scott's a little bit underrated. He's going to have the striking advantage, no doubt about it. He has a solid IQ on the feet. He mixes things up well. Solid boxing. He has got a nice lead jab, follows it with a strong right hand with an uppercut at times as well. So that's kind of, nice to see because he does throw some unorthodox angles and techniques at times. On the ground, like I said, his grappling base is pretty solid. He has good takedown defense. He usually ends up on top when he does get the fight to the floor, which is also good. And he's got an underrated sub game in his own right. I mean, like I said, that choke against Kuiper was pretty smooth and pretty slick. I mean, he attacked quick and Kuiper didn't have much of a chance there. And again, he's one of these guys that's a young gun. I mean, I believe Scott's only 24 and De Silva's 31. So he's got the youth advantage. He's going to continue to improve. And I believe this is a spot where he should win. I mean, the hype and buzz might be around De Silva a little bit, but I think it is Scott's fight to win or lose, and I'm going to side with Scott. I think it's kind of a confident pick here because from what I've seen out of both guys, unless De Silva shows up and improves his overall game drastically, Scott's going to beat him.
Yeah, for me, this fight's going to come down to takedown defense because, I mean, you got Scott 24, De Silva 31, and even though Scott moved up to middleweight after competing as a welterweight on the Ultimate Fighter Smashes season, he actually is going to have a pretty big size advantage over De Silva. So De Silva's probably not competing in the right weight class, and Scott at 6'1", I believe, is about 5 inches taller than him. So De Silva's one of the smaller middleweights on the roster right now for the UFC. And De Silva is pretty solid overall, at least on the ground. He did lose his professional debut via disqualification, but he's on a 9-fight win streak since then, most of them by submission, and most of them quickly. So this fight is all going to come down to if Scott can keep the fight standing, if Scott can handle that early blitz, and if Scott can just stay off his back and work him over on the feet, because De Silva does not have very good stand-up whatsoever. He is a pretty one-dimensional fighter. It kind of reminds me of Leandro Issa, who made his UFC debut a while back earlier this year. And that's pretty much what this fight is going to come down to. Now, Scott is decent on the feet, and he's improving. At 24 years old, he's got a lot more room for growth than De Silva. De Silva was the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor at London Shoot Fighters, so he's got that going for him. He is working with a lot of English fighters, and the one thing you do always have to be concerned about with European fighters is, can they keep the fight standing? The wrestling is always the biggest question mark with European fighters, and that's pretty much what it's going to come down to, because if this fight stays standing, Scott is going to have his way with De Silva. He's going to outwork him. He'll have the longer jab. He should have more power and much better technique. So if it stays standing, Scott wins easily, and if it goes to the ground, De Silva should at least win the first round, maybe the second. And considering that I don't think he's even gone to a decision. Cardio is a huge question mark for him. And it's all going to come down to, can De Silva get it to the ground? Can De Silva submit him? Because I'm not sure De Silva can win a decision. He's probably going to run out of gas before then. But I'm going to take a stab at De Silva. Not a ton of confidence, but I think that he can at least get it to the ground in the first, and that's where it's going to be really interesting. So I'm picking De Silva. Very little confidence in it, though. Now, moving on, we have a middleweight contest featuring another Ultimate Fighter veteran in Luke Barnett, who is 7-0 overall, taking on UFC newcomer Mats Nilsson, who is 11-2-1. So, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's public shifted things?
Well, I opened Barnett minus 280, the comeback on Nilsson, plus 200. And again, over at 5 right now, it's minus 290, plus 245. So not much movement. And another tricky fight kind of, because I know Nilsson's relatively unknown to the UFC fan base, but I mean, make no mistake, the guy's really solid on the European scene, especially, and he's fought a lot of his competition. You know, the Cage Warriors organization, in my opinion, is elite when it comes to MMA in Europe. I mean, the guys, overall, it's a top-notch organization. They recruit and go after solid fighters, and it shows because so many of the guys have since moved on to the UFC, including Nilsson. So he's definitely a solid prospect in the making. I mean, he's 30, so gets a little dangerous when you call him prospect, but still, he's been around the scene for a little while. He continues to improve his overall game, and what you get with Nilsson is an incredibly solid ground fighter. I mean, he's got decent wrestling, he's got decent grappling overall, good takedowns, he closes the gap quick and well, and he's successful in most takedown attempts with his wrestling. And once he gets up to the floor, he does have decent ground and pound. And again, he's one of these guys that looks to attack with submissions. So Nilsson is pretty solid. Now, his worst attribute would be standing. I mean, again, he's a grappling-based fighter, so that's not a huge surprise. But he is improving that stand-up game a little bit. But he's another one of these guys that uses his stand-up, throws strikes to kind of close the distance and get the fight to the ground. He does like to lead with his left jab often, and he turns it into a right hook. Sometimes he turns and follows it up with a right hook at times, which is okay. He can be kind of effective with that combination. But he is a very solid prospect, again, if you want to call him that, to watch. And I think he's going to make some waves in, again, the middleweight division, depending on what weight class he ends up sticking to. But he has a very hard fight in front of him with Barnett, no doubt about it. Barnett, let's get it right into him actually with his striking, of course. That's his best attribute. I mean, he's a long, rangy striker. He's very technically sound on the feet. That's the most impressive thing to me watching Barnett striking game overall on footage. The guy doesn't really leave too many openings. He doesn't really get away or get too wild with his game. He stays very disciplined, and he is technically sound. So very impressive, because with that technique, I mean, he's accurate and he lands strikes well. I mean, his win over Andrew Craig was very impressive to me. I was surprised that he did so well, but you got to give him credit. Andrew Craig is no slouch at all. And I mean, Andrew got caught in that fight quite a few times because of Barnett's accurate and his technical striking ability. So he uses his reach well. He's got sneaky power on the feet, and he's smart. He's got really decent fight IQ. I mean, that's what you got to like about him as well. Now, of course, his nickname being the Big Slow, he is that. If anything, I think he needs to kind of continue to work on his speed, because he is a little bit slow, and you can see some of the punches coming at times. But he's going to have a huge edge over Nilsson on the feet. Now, his grappling overall, he's got solid takedown defense, and it continues to improve. I mean, you could definitely see that aspect of his game. He's not the easiest guy to take down, and he's always really, especially against the cage, he's really hard to take down. I mean, he uses his leverage well and his hooks well, and makes life interesting. But he does try to get top position too on the ground. He's got decent ground and pound, but again, he wants to avoid the mat at all costs in this fight here for sure. So he's going to look to sprawl and brawl and get the W that way. And I think eventually he will do that. I think Nilsson does have a tendency to slow down as the fight goes a little bit, and you can't really do that with Barnett. So I do think Barnett's going to do enough on the feet to do some damage. Nilsson's a tough guy. I think he's going to be able to withstand some punishment for a while. So I'm kind of expecting this maybe to hit the cards, but if not, maybe a late stoppage again for Barnett. So I'm going to lean with him. I do think it's his fight to win or lose. If he doesn't make a mistake and keep this fight upright, he should win.
Yeah, this is actually similar to the last fight here, where the Barnett is the younger fighter and has a bigger size advantage. But in this case, I definitely think Barnett should be able to use those physical tools to help him win. The main thing here, Barnett's 25, Nilsson's 30. Barnett's 5 inches taller at 6'6". I mean, he's got to be the tallest middleweight on the UFC roster right now, now that Kendall Grove's gone. But on the feet, Barnett should have a clear advantage. Nilsson is okay if he can get inside. He has a little bit of power, and left hook's okay, but Barnett has actually gotten a lot better at using his range. He's not quite devastating like he could be, being such a big middleweight, but he's getting there. And you saw some flashes of it in his last fight against Andrew Craig, where he showed marked improvement in all areas, including power and accuracy. Now, he is not the fastest guy, but when you were 6'6", you don't need to be the fastest guy as long as you can react and keep somebody at distance and use your range properly. So I see Barnett being able to keep the fight standing and work from distance with his jabs and then follow up occasionally with his straight punches. But on the ground, Nilsson should be better on the ground. Most of his fights are finished there. He gets inside, takes people down. He works some solid ground and pound and submissions. But, honestly, Nilsson isn't even the best middleweight in Sweden. He lost to Tor Trang, who was on The Ultimate Fighter, and Barnett was the number 1 pick by Chael Sonnen on that season. And, he's a solid overall fighter, Barnett is. And this fight is all going to come down to, can Nilsson get inside? Can Nilsson get Barnett on his back? And can he keep him there? Because I'm not sure Nilsson can submit him. So I just don't see it happening. Nilsson does not have good enough wrestling to counter Barnett's takedown defense. So I see Barnett just working him over on the feet and potentially even getting a stoppage here with strikes. So my pick is definitely Luke Barnett. Now, the final preliminary fight is a light heavyweight matchup featuring Cyril Diabate, who is 29-2 overall, taking on Ilir Latifi, who is 8-3 with 1 no contest. So, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Diabate, I opened -125, Latifi -115. So virtually a pick'em, very, very tiny lean towards Diabate. And looking over at the line right now, it's exactly a pick'em. So a little bit more support coming in on Latifi, but I did see the line bounce around a little bit. So this is a fight where the books are getting some decent two-way action either way, and it's keeping the line your pick'em. And I think a lot of people are kind of confused about this fight and which way to go, obviously, as well, because it is an interesting fight. I mean, Diabate, of course, is going to have some serious advantages in this fight. I mean, just with his physical size, he's 6'6". He's a southpaw, so he's going to have a huge reach advantage. He has that going for him, and he's going to have the striking advantage. Make no mistake about it. I mean, the guy is a pretty talented striker, has some power. He's, again, one of these technically sound strikers. Does leave his hands low at times, but in this spot against Latifi, I don't think he has too much to worry about as far as keeping this fight standing. What he is going to have to worry about is the ground. I mean, that's where Diabate is getting better and he's improving his ground game. In fact, he's improving his wrestling overall. He's managing to get more top position, which is nice to see. I mean, the guy's definitely put in a lot of work. But compared to Latifi, I think in this spot, that's where he's going to suffer a little bit. Latifi's got a little bit underrated grappling, and that's what he's going to look to do. Latifi, his striking's really, it's okay, it's decent. It's nothing special at all, but he does have some solid boxing and actually kickboxing overall. He has a nice right hand with a lot of power. He throws a nice uppercut as well, and he does throw some high kicks. Now, of course, that's not going to probably be too effective against Diabate since he's so tall and big, so I don't think we're going to see too many of that stuff coming, but his grappling is where he wants to go here in this fight, like I mentioned. I think he can get the takedowns on Diabate. I think he can manage to get top position. And once he gets the fight to the ground, I mean, he does have decent control, good ground and pound, and he stays active. So I'm not expecting too many. I mean, we'll see some stand-ups depending on how the crowd reacts and the referee who's reffing, of course, in this spot. But I think he's going to do enough damage and stay busy enough to maintain control when he does get on top. So he is coming off Latifi's coming off a loss, of course, to the hands of Gegard Mousasi, but he did perform okay. He got beat clearly in that fight, but he hung in there, and he didn't get finished by what I think is an elite level, middleweight now in Gegard Mousasi, since he did drop back down to middleweight. But that being said, Latifi, I mean, this is kind of a step down in competition because Gegard is a level above Diabate, but still an interesting matchup. So for me, I've honestly been going back and forth on this fight. It's really who can take advantage of their strengths. Either Diabate's going to keep it on the feet and probably pick apart Latifi, maybe even stop him, or Latifi's going to get the fight to the ground and control, land his ground and pound, and probably win a decision that way. So I'm going to side with Latifi a little bit here. This is a spot that, again, is not very confident because I could realistically see it go either way. But I think this is Latifi's fight to win or lose. I think he can really, again, control the pace of the fight. And if he hangs in there and doesn't get stopped, he's probably going to win the decision.
Yeah, and this is one where I actually disagree with you, Nick. Latifi does have a big age advantage here. I mean, he's only 30 years old while Diabate is 40, so that is really scary. But Diabate's about 10 inches taller too, so this fight is entirely going to be grappler versus striker. I mean, it's not even close. If this stays standing, Diabate is going to destroy Ilir Latifi. If this goes to the ground, Latifi should be able to control Diabate and work him over for a decision or maybe a submission, most likely a decision though. So that's entirely what this comes down to. It just will be decided by who can dictate the pace, who can force the other to fight their fight. Because Diabate on the feet, he's pretty solid. I mean, he's one of the better stand-up fighters in the UFC at light heavyweight. He has a great kickboxing background, some solid Muay Thai skills. He works elbows, he works knees, he works jabs. I mean, he's hurt people with his jabs. He has good power in both hands, and he can mix in kicks as well. So, he's very dynamic on the feet, and he uses his range relatively well. But he is susceptible on the ground. I mean, he's been taken down by just about everybody that he's fought. So, his ground game is getting better. He's not a complete fish out of the water, but he's still, even the UFC newcomers like Tom DeBlas were able to take him down. Jimmy Manuwa, who does not have a very good overall ground game, took him down twice in the first round of their fight. So, if Latifi is really pushing forward aggressively, he should be able to get the fight to the ground. But again, I'm not sure that, how good Latifi is. So you look at Latifi, does not have very good striking whatsoever. I mean, he has some decent power, but how is he going to get inside on Diabate standing? I just don't see it happening. It all comes down to, can Latifi shoot in and get Diabate on his back repeatedly? And while I do think he might be able to do it once or twice, I just don't see him doing it over the course of 3 rounds. I think he's going to take a lot of damage coming in. Latifi actually did go out to AKA and work with Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier, some of those guys. So his wrestling should be a little bit more improved than what we saw in that UFC debut against Mousasi. But I just don't like the way this guy is built. I mean, he's like a bowling ball, and I just don't see it. There's really not that much out of him, and I know UFC probably would rather have Latifi win because he's so much younger, and how much more can Diabate even do? But I definitely see Diabate getting the better of this. The big concern for me is, at 40, Diabate can potentially take more damage than Latifi, and he also he's a little bit more injury prone. We saw in his last fight, it was just very random, but his calf just got messed up in the fight, and he had to withdraw from the fight after the first round. So little things, fluky things, are more likely to happen to Diabate. But if they don't, then I think Diabate should be able to work over Latifi to the point where he's not able to get those takedowns because he's just taking some punishment. So my pick is Cyril Diabate. Now, the first fight on the main card here is a welterweight contest featuring Gunnar Nelson, who is 11-0-1 overall, taking on Omari Akhmedov, who is 12-0. So, Nick, where'd you open this one, and how's public shifted things so far?
Well, I opened Nelson minus 270 to come back on Akhmedov plus 190. And this is a spot at the sports books where Nelson is getting a little bit more love and support because looking over at 5 dimes right now, Nelson is minus 325 to come back on Akhmedov plus 265. Interesting spot because I wasn't really sure which way the early action was going to come in on this fight because a lot of the Russians have been getting a lot of support from the betting public. I mean, due to the fact of their performances overall, the Russians, Bellator and the UFC have performed very well. And you can see the improvement level, really since they've been more noticeable or made an impact, I should say, in the United States, definitely. So a lot of the Russians are very talented. They have a lot to offer, especially when it comes to the striking game. That's where they seem to excel the most. So again, with the Russian hype, wasn't sure which way the public was going to go, but they are siding with Nelson here. So I think Akhmedov's fight against Perpetuo in his last fight in his UFC debut, that was a crazy fight. Went back and forth. Akhmedov was actually losing that fight. He came back to win in crazy fashion. I mean, you guys have to watch that fight to understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I think that actually affected his stock in quite a ways here. And his matchup against Nelson is a very interesting one. Nelson has several advantages in this spot, no doubt about it. On the feet, again, Akhmedov is one of these guys that is a little bit dangerous because he's so powerful. He's got huge knockout power. He leads with strong leg kicks, sets up his hands well, and he just, like I said, throws bombs at you. So he's patient and dangerous when it comes to the striking game at times. But grappling is another area that he's not bad at. I mean, he does look to get the fight to the floor. He does look for takedowns, and he has a solid wrestling base. He's able to grapple. He has won several fights by submission in his own right. So he's got a very complete game. But again, I think he's a little bit more dangerous, especially in this fight, on the feet. Now, getting over at Gunnar Nelson, I mean, his grappling attributes speak for themselves. The guy's phenomenal on the ground. His submission game's legit. He can definitely sub most fighters at 170. And his stand-up game continues to improve. He's got that karate type of style that he uses pretty well, and he can be very effective at times with it. So he's one of these guys that's, I mean, at age 25, he's still a young prospect that's really starting to pick up some quality wins in the UFC. I mean, his win over DeMarcus Johnson was impressive. His win over George Santiago again recently was impressive as well. So he's got a lot of good momentum going, and I think those solid wins are just going to excel his confidence and excel his overall game. So this is a fight for Gunnar to basically win or lose here. I think if he doesn't get caught standing, he's probably going to at least control Akhmedov and grind out a decision win here. Akhmedov is one of these guys, another Russian-based fighter that does tend to fade as the fight goes on a little bit well. So I think his best chance, Akhmedov, is to catch Nelson early. If not, Nelson's probably going to get this fight to the floor and control and probably finish it with a sub. So the advantages definitely lie with Gunnar Nelson in this spot. I think he's going to continue to roll, and he should win this fight more times than not. Now, at the line being minus 325 or so, not necessarily a great wager to be made on Nelson. I think you got to be cautious if you're betting this fight, and especially laying that juice. But I do think Nelson is the way to go as far as the actual pick.
Yeah, and I have to agree on this. You'll look at Nelson, 25 years old. There's so much going for him in terms of ability. He has a pretty interesting karate background, so he throws out some unorthodox attacks, and he's relatively aggressive on the feet, which was surprising considering his grappling credentials. I mean, the guy is a Renzo Gracie black belt, and he is phenomenal on the canvas. Once he gets people on the ground, he's a guard passing machine. He slices through people's defenses like butter. He has excellent submissions, excellent control, and you're in a world of pain when he gets you on the canvas. And now the biggest problem here with Nelson is, honestly, he's not really a welterweight. He should be fighting at 155 pounds. He's undersized. So Akhmedov will have a size advantage here. And Akhmedov actually was a former middleweight. So, but we have seen Gunnar Nelson hold his own against former middleweights like George Santiago in his most recent fight, a more experienced former middleweight, to be honest. Now, Akhmedov, he's decent on the feet, nothing that special. He does have a lot of power, so that is something to watch out for. He should have a couple physical advantages in terms of size and strength and probably power as well. But, in his last fight against Perpetuo, that was one of the least impressive debuts for a Russian I've ever seen. I mean, the guy, Akhmedov, got rocked twice standing and then just came back with a crazy, 1-2 punch knockout. Akhmedov does not have the best striking defense. He does not have a very good chin. Now, Nelson doesn't have a ton of power, so I don't know if Nelson can actually knock him out. Probably not. But that is something to watch out for, that Akhmedov is so hittable and can be hurt, especially at 26 years old, already getting hit like that and getting hurt like that. That's a bit of a red flag. Now, on the ground, Akhmedov is pretty good on the ground, but I mean, he is nothing compared to Nelson. Nelson is so much better than him on the canvas. It just all comes down to, is Nelson going to play that game? Is he going to use his best physical tools to win this fight? So I'm not sure if he will. You never really know. The guy is just he just has this aura about him that he just doesn't care about anything. And, that does scare me a little bit, that he's not going to try to take advantage of the things that will help him win the most. But overall, if Nelson can get this fight to the ground or just outwork Akhmedov on the feet, he should at least win a decision. And I think you could definitely see a submission victory here for Nelson, because he's proven he can go the distance, and he's looked pretty solid in both UFC wins so far against guys that I think are just as good as Akhmedov, if not better. So I'm definitely picking Gunnar Nelson here. Now, moving on, we have the flyweight debut of Brad Pickett, who is 24-8 overall, taking on UFC newcomer Neil Seery, who is 13-9. So, Nick, where'd you open this fight, and how's public shifted things?
Pickett opens minus 505 to come back on Seery plus 335. And again, looking over the line at 5 dimes, Pickett's actually minus 700 to come back on Seery plus 500. So not a huge shocker because, I mean, Pickett's a very well proven contender. I mean, he was at bantamweight. Now he's making his drop to flyweight. He does have a win over current flyweight champion Demetrius Johnson at bantamweight, which is pretty impressive. So a lot of hype and a lot of buzz around Pickett as far as making his flyweight debut. I mean, a lot of people believe he can become an instant contender. He is a very solid fighter. I have tons of respect for Pickett. I mean, I've been following this guy for a long time as far as his career goes. I mean, back in the UK when he was fighting on Cage Rage, Cage Warriors, all those type of places. And I've seen the significant improvements Pickett's made in his game. I mean, training at American Top Team has definitely been great, to say the least, for Pickett. I mean, he's gotten where he's at, I think, because of his training partners and because of the hard work he's put in. That being said, I mean, Seery's relatively unknown, I think, to a lot of the people that might be listening to our podcast, but he's another one of these savvy vets that, I mean, you can't really look at his pure record and go by that. I mean, he's 13-9 on paper, but a lot of those losses did come in early in his career, and he's made, again, kind of like Pickett, he's made a lot of improvements in his overall game through the years. So Seery, especially in Cage Warriors, I mean, he has a very solid and impressive resume, and I've complimented Cage Warriors earlier in the podcast, and I do believe that it is an elite organization when it comes to the European scene. So he's fought decent competition outside of the UFC, and he's been successful. Seery's a pretty well-rounded striker, and that's his best attribute to me. I mean, he has striking, he has the ability to finish on the feet, he has the ability to finish on the ground. I'll get right into his striking. I mean, his boxing's decent, his kickboxing's also decent. He's not very aggressive, but when he does throw, he digs in and throws with a lot of power. He's got a sneaky left body kick. I mean, look at his fight against Paul Marin. He actually ended that fight with that body kick. And he does tend to switch from orthodox to southpaw back and forth a little bit to make things a little bit harder on his opponent. So he has some decent fight IQ. And, you know, he does tend to use it. I mean, that's one good thing that you do notice about him. I mean, he counters well, and he's effective with his power for being a little guy. His grappling also very solid. I mean, he's attacks and looks for subs. He does look to take the fight to the ground from time to time, but he does tend to spend a little bit too much time on his back for my liking. I think that's what's probably going to come into play here. Now, he can finish the fight off his back. He has good arm bars, and he does scramble and, you know, work okay off his back, but still, he doesn't want to be put in that position against Brad Pickett. Now, getting into Pickett again, another very well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's going to have, I think, an edge in every aspect of this fight. That's why he's such a big favorite. He's going to have the striking edge. He has good boxing. He's technical, has power, mixes in leg kicks pretty well, and he does push forward, stays busy, but Pickett does get tagged on the feet. Now, again, against higher level competition in most cases, but he still gets tagged. And Seery, again, I mentioned, he does dig in and throw some bombs from time to time. So Pickett cannot underestimate Seery's power, even if he's moved on to flyweight. So that's one thing we got to kind of keep an eye on. And also, we got to, again, see how Pickett does make the weight cut and how he looks at weigh-ins. But that being said, he does have the overall edge. His grappling, he should be able to control the fight that way as well. I think he has a better wrestling, and he's really improved his overall game again, especially in that attribute, because of his sub game, he's dangerous now, with hitting submissions, and his sub defense has improved. So his fights are win or lose, and I do think he's going to win it. Obviously, he's a huge favorite for a reason, and it's just a bad matchup for Seery. But at 7-1 is getting a little bit crazy. So, I mean, this doesn't look like it's even tempting for me for a parlay. I mean, a lot of people are going to be parlaying Pickett, and they should hit and they should cash this. But I mean, for me, honestly, at 7-1, I know what Seery's made of. He's going to come to fight, and so for me, it's kind of a pass. But I do pick Pickett.
Yeah, and you have to agree that Pickett should win this fight. Honestly, Seery is getting a little bit of respect coming in, but at 34 years old, and even though Pickett's 35, you know, being 34 is not the best time to be making your UFC debut. Now, I'll give Seery a little bit of credit on the feet. I think he'll be able to hold his own with Pickett. He has pretty solid boxing, and he actually uses his kicks. While he doesn't use them as often as I'd like, his kicks are actually a little bit better than Pickett's. Now, Pickett does push a really crazy pace. Like, every one of his fights is exciting. He has 4 fight of the night bonuses for a reason, and knockout of the night bonus. The guy is just a bonus machine. I think he has the highest percentage of bonus wins in his fights in UFC history. But Pickett is really, really aggressive, and that could potentially get him in trouble here. He might want to just be try to put on a show for the local fans, since he is fighting in his native England. And I think Seery actually is pretty powerful and can counter well. So if Pickett pushes forward aggressively, then he could get himself in trouble. Granted, the only guys that have defeated Pickett have been elite, like Eddie Wineland, Hanan Barrow, Michael McDonald, even Scott Jorgensen when he was at his absolute best at bantamweight. But Pickett is dropping down to 125 pounds. So at 35 years old, with all the damage he's taken, usually your ability to take punishment actually gets worse when you drop a weight class. So if Pickett walks into something, Seery could finish him, but I do think that worst case scenario, if Pickett does get tagged, he recovers pretty well. He never gets knocked out clean or knocked down clean. He always gets right back up and is scrapping. So if Pickett does get hurt, I expect Pickett to shoot in for a takedown, and that's where the real big difference here in overall ability for these guys is, because Pickett is much, much better than Seery on the ground. Like, Seery can hold his own against more inexperienced European fighters. You know, he was the Cage Warriors champ for a reason, but against a guy like Brad Pickett, who's pulled off a Peruvian necktie under the Zuffa banner, I just see Pickett being able to work him over on the ground. I mean, Pickett took down Michael McDonald in one of his most recent fights. I mean, he didn't get the win, but that's impressive. And I think if he wants to take Seery down, he will, and he'll probably finish the fight on the ground if and when he does get it there. So my pick is Brad Pickett, but just be a little bit careful with the chin and maybe him wanting to just have a fun, exciting brawl on the feet. So I am picking Brad Pickett, though. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have a lightweight battle consisting of Michael Johnson, who is 15-8 overall, taking on former teammate Melvin Guillard, who is a whopping 48-13-3 with 2 no contests. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Johnson, I opened minus 155 to come back on Guillard, plus 115. And again, over at 5 dimes right now at the time of the recording. Johnson's actually minus 120, even money. So initial action did come in on Melvin Guillard, making it close to a pick'em. In fact, at one point, I believe it flipped. So he was a slight favorite, and then action started coming back in on Johnson. So Johnson with a slight edge is fair to me. I think, you got to give it to him, especially with the momentum and the run that he's been on. I mean, you see nothing but improvements in Johnson's game. But overall, this is a fight. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this fight, probably more so than any other fight on the card, because you know what you're getting with these two. I mean, they both have capable wrestling, and capable takedown defense. So I think that neutralizes each other out, and 2 great strikers are going to go to battle here. So, I mean, like I said, we should be very pleased, and I'm expecting a highlight reel finish either way in this fight, but probably for Johnson. I mean, getting into the striking a little bit, because that's what probably we're going to see. I mean, some advantages that Johnson has off the rip. He is a southpaw, and he does have some good footwork and movement. He's fast with his counters. He does kick well. These guys are almost mirror images, though, because you look over at Guillard, and I got some notes on Melvin, and it's basically some of the same stuff. I mean, both the guys have nice lead jabs. They use they follow up with their right hand with a lot of power. Again, well, obviously for the southpaw, it's a little bit different with Johnson there, but they mix in their kicks. They blend in powerful kicks, low, middle, high, very well. They have good clinch games and very explosive. I mean, these guys are nasty on the feet. They have that crazy kind of knockout power that it doesn't take much to end a fight. So we're going to see that kind of battle back and forth. I think Melvin's kind of a little bit, I guess, been through the ringer a little bit more, if that makes any sense. I think he's been in the tougher battles. And again, the confidence level with Johnson right now, knowing what he's in for with the fight with Melvin. Everybody knows they used to train together down in Hako there with the Black Zillion camp, of course, so they know each other very well. And I just think, again, momentum's on the side, and Melvin is a little bit more flawed at this point. I think Johnson's going to be the cleaner puncher in this spot, and I think he's going to be able to land a little bit more, and he's probably going to end up knocking Melvin out. But as far as the bet goes, it's dangerous betting this fight when you're laying juice either way, because both guys are so explosive. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But overall, I do, like I said, expect a back and forth battle, but I do think that Johnson is going to end up catching Melvin at some point, and he's going to put him out. So that's going to be my lean. That's going to be my pick. And it's a little bit more confident than, obviously the last fight, believe it or not, even though it's such a close fight.
Yeah. And I do like this fight, and it's crazy close because these guys are so familiar with each other, and they're both so talented, especially on the feet. Now, as Nick mentioned, Guillard Johnson is a southpaw, and he uses his distance well. While he does have the nice jab, he has good power, but it's not devastating power. Although I do think he's a little more technical than Guillard. He has something that I think could potentially help here is his solid offensive wrestling, although he doesn't do a whole lot once he is on the ground, but he could just hold Guillard down. Now, things to be concerned about with Johnson is he doesn't have a great chin. He is susceptible to the straight right. We've seen him get hurt by it a couple times, Edward Faalaloto and then Danny Castillo. So that is something to be slightly concerned about. And he can be controlled on the ground. So if Guillard actually decides to use his offensive wrestling, he could keep Johnson on his back. And this is something that probably won't come into play whatsoever, but Johnson doesn't have the greatest submission defense either. Although, again, I really do not see in a million years Melvin Guillard going for a submission. Guillard, he actually is training out of American Top Team right now. And one thing that is concerning for me now is he's 30 years old. He's not the young assassin anymore. And honestly, after more than 48 fights, honestly, it's closer to 60 fights, 65 fights. He's about 45 in fight years. So that's scary. And when that happens, when you're in that many fights, your chin starts to go down, your reflexes start to go down, and I don't think his chin's that good anymore. I mean, we've seen videos of him training, getting dropped by Carlos Condit in training. We've seen him get knocked out cold by Donald Cerrone. We saw him get rocked against Joe Lozon. So that is a big concern. And I do think that while he has some really good talent on the feet, he can get really wild at times. And he does not have the best ground game either. And he has awful submission defense. So, if Johnson has been working with all those black belts and everybody at the Black Zillions, then maybe he could pull out a submission. Now, what Melvin does have going for him is he has an absolutely monstrous right hand. And I think that Johnson is susceptible to that, and Johnson's been hurt by guys with much weaker right hands than Melvin Guillard. So if Melvin's able to explode forward and land that, then that could help him out here. Melvin does also have some really explosive knees and body shots. He really pushes forward with them. And, I mean, he's finished fights with knees to the body, so that is something to always look out for. And he has decent offensive wrestling, but again, just like Johnson, not that great from top position. So this is primarily just going to come down to who's better on the feet, who lands the big shot, and who follows up the best without leaving an opening. And I think that this could be Johnson's time to shine. So, Reed, what do the numbers tell us?
Well, the numbers back you up. Standing, I do see slight advantages leaning towards Johnson, but obviously the big story here is the power. There is 21 combined knockdowns between these two guys. They have just been dropping people left and right. Now, strike for strike, obviously Guillard is a lot higher. His career knockdown stats they're in the record books. I mean, I think he's third all time behind Anderson Silva and Chuck Liddell. So that's just ridiculous, especially when you factor in that he's just a lightweight. But his accuracy is not quite as good as Johnson. Johnson will be the southpaw. He's also longer and younger, and I think fresher overall just in terms of fight years. And that could be the difference standing up. If they each land a strike, I think Guillard is a little bit more likely to fall down. The question is who gets there first, and both these guys are good at finding the chin. Pace-wise, Johnson again has an advantage. He operates not only at a higher average pace, but he tends to outwork his opponents. And he's got good defense. So, there are slight leans towards Johnson, but that's with the caveat that both these guys have the ability to knock each other out. On the ground, neither one has performed well. Just neither one of them spent a lot of time in top control. They've mostly been put on their back on the ground, and they've been submitted. Most of their career losses are coming by submission. So since neither one of these is guys known as a submission ace, that may not be a real threat. But Johnson does have a little bit better takedown defense. I don't really expect to see a lot of takedowns. Neither one of them normally throws that at their opponent. So assuming they stand and bang, it could end early. It's tough to predict, especially in this situation where they both have power and yet they both can be dropped, who's going to do the damage first. But I do see slight leans towards Johnson. We'll have to see where the prop bets come out to see where there's value. But certainly this is a matchup I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I think it will be an award winner of some kind probably at the end of the night.
Now moving on to the main event of the evening, we have a light heavyweight contest featuring Alexander Gustafsson, who is 15-2 overall, taking on Jimmy the Poster Boy Manuwa, who is 14-0. Now Nick, where'd you open this fight and how's public shifted things?
Well, the line's been out for a while. Gustafsson minus 405, Manuwa plus 285 was my original opening number. Now looking over 5 dimes, Gustafsson's minus 450, Manuwa is actually plus 360. So a little bit more support for Gustafsson, but again, the parlays and everything else driving that number up, and I'm sure a lot of sportsbooks are going to get straight action on Manuwa. And the reason being, I mean, the guy's definitely a talented striker. He's got nasty power. He's another one of these very explosive, athletic guys that can basically KO you with a knee, with an elbow strike, pretty much any part of his body. I mean, that's how gifted and talented this guy is on the feet with his power. But make no mistake, he does have some flaws in his game. And Gustafsson is obviously the more complete, the better overall fighter, no doubt about it. That's why he's coming in as such a big favorite. I mean, his performance in his last fight against John Jones, I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, he was that close to being the 205-pound champion, which is more than impressive considering who it was against. I mean, Jones has been pound for pound the best fighter now for a little while, so very impressive. Gustafsson's right up there with the elite fighters on the planet, no doubt about it. And the edges he's going to have here in this fight, I mean, early on, I think round 1 is going to be interesting. I mean, Gustafsson is more than capable of hanging in there on the feet, actually outpointing him. He's going to have a small reach advantage, not a big reach advantage over Manuwa in this spot, but he still will do his thing and land his strikes, no doubt about it. So striking is going to be competitive. I expect even Gustafsson to do a little bit better probably overall on the feet in round 1, but Manuwa is always dangerous, like I said. So, and when he's fresh and when he has that cardio about him, he's not an easy guy at all to deal with on the feet. So round 1 to me is going to be very interesting. I think Manuwa is going to have his best opportunity during that time frame, during that window, to do some damage with his leg kicks, with his body shots, with his knees, and just look for that almost haymaker type of blow to put Gustafsson out. But I'm pretty sure that's the only way he's going to win this fight. Manuwa does have a tendency to gas. He tends to fade. And when he does, I mean, reality strikes and he becomes not that fierce of a striker. I mean, and against Gustafsson, he's not going to be able to do that. Gustafsson's going to end up putting him out if he fades that bad. So Manuwa has to come into this fight in the best shape of his life if he's going to have success against Gustafsson. So this is literally a tall task ahead of him, and I just don't think he's going to pass it. I mean, again, from a betting perspective, is there a ton of value in Gustafsson at the current line? I'm not sure about that. But at the same time, is it a dog or pass situation? I'm not sure about that either. So I got to lean Gustafsson. I think he does get the job done. Again, he's an elite level fighter, and more times than not, he should be able to handle Manoa and put him away.
Yeah, I completely agree about Gustafsson. He is, in my mind, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. So you look at this fight, you have Gustafsson, who's only 27 years old, taking on Manuwa, who people are hailing as a great prospect, but he's 34. So that is something to really be concerned about. Now, Gustafsson trains out of Sweden and at Alliance MMA. He's got incredible training. Manuwa, not so much. I mean, he sticks around the local London area fighting, and there's not that much there, especially in the elite level. A lot of the elite guys in the UK actually went to Alliance to go train, and he didn't. So, you look at Gustafsson, he has advantages with a huge reach, very excellent technical boxing. His left jab is nasty. He has really solid cardio. He has good power, especially in his right hand. And he also has a straight right and an uppercut. So, those are all things that he can finish fights with. And he is constantly improving his wrestling and his ground game. You know, it was once a weakness. Now it's one of his strengths. I mean, John Jones could not get him down, and he actually took down John Jones in that last fight. So I think his ground game is one of the better attributes for him. And he also does really well against very aggressive fighters who push forward. That's where he's got most of his finishes and knockdowns in the UFC. Now, there really aren't that many cons to Gustafsson's ability. I mean, the only thing I can think is, as he's increased the level of competition, he is starting to fight a little bit safer. And while he does have great cardio, he doesn't have the most power as the fight goes on. So he does lose some of that finishing ability. Now, with Manuwa, he is extremely, extremely powerful. He can explode forward with that leaping left hook, which is his best shot, and he can throw it to the head and to the body, and it is nasty. He does have a big straight right that he's dropped several opponents with, and probably his biggest advantage could be if this fight goes to the clinch, because he has really good short strikes, excellent knees, very good elbows. So he might just want to get this fight up close and personal where that reach for Gustafsson won't matter. Because at distance, the only thing that Manuwa will probably be able to do is either explode forward or potentially work some of his kicks. He does have above average leg, body, and even head kicks. I mean, he actually landed a head kick on Cyril Diabate. So, I mean, if he can land it on him, he can land it on Gustafsson. And he does throw a decent side kick every once in a while. But again, I really do think he needs to get it inside. And he has mixed in takedowns, but I absolutely do not expect him to even attempt one against Gustafsson here. And in terms of the negatives, Nick mentioned him. He does not have the best ground game. He does not have the best cardio. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he has about 2 rounds to win this fight. And he does not have a very he's vulnerable to competent ground fighters. So if Gustafsson, wants to play it safe and get inside and take him down, then I think he'll just be a fish out of the water off of his back. And he is a little bit wild, which can leave openings to superior fighters. So that is also a concern. So this will all come down to if Manuwa can get those big shots and do the damage early to get a finish, because I do not see him winning a decision by any means. And that's pretty much what it's going to come down to. So that's my biggest concern, because it's been really fluky with Manuwa so far, with him having 3 wins all by injury stoppage. And unless there's another fluke, I do not see Manuwa winning this fight. So, Reed, do the numbers back us up?
Yeah, I think the numbers back you up. Certainly on paper, Manuwa's stats are kind of ridiculous. And they're inflated by, he really hurt a lot of guys, and literally and figuratively. So he was very accurate. He did get some knockdowns. His defense was okay, but he also put on a blistering pace. He really attacked people and was aggressive. Now that may be a mistake against someone like Gustafsson, who has very good movement for a big guy. He showed it against John Jones, actually landing a takedown, having very good takedown defense himself. The only hole that I see on Gustafsson's side of the page here is his head striking defense. He has gotten by having a fresh chin. He's never taken a knockout, and he's pretty young. And so I think that's gotten him to a certain point. But he does get hit. He actually allows people to hit him at a very accurate pace, and Manuwa is not the kind of guy that you want teeing off on your chin. So against John Jones, the types of strikes that were landing on Gustafsson, he was hurt with an elbow, but a lot of those shots were kind of exotic. I think Manuwa, if he just sits in the pocket and really blasts Gustafsson, we might see him get hurt seriously for the first time. But I think you're right. There's a ticking clock here, and Manuwa has to do that early. He's not going to be able to throw the same kind of heat in the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th round for sure. So that's where he's going to have this timing issue. He's going to come out very aggressive. The vast majority of his standing strikes are power strikes. He doesn't mess around with the jab very much. He swings for the paces and at a very high pace, and that's going to exhaust him. So if Gustafsson uses his range and uses his motion to get out of the way here, hopefully doesn't eat the punches that he's been eating in the past, he should weather that storm. And then you're right. I think if this goes to the mat, it's Gustafsson's game. And he has shown, he's been in there with some of the best. He started his UFC career with a tough loss, and I think he's closed some of those holes in his game. And I think that's probably where it ends. I think it ends on the ground, and I think it ends with Gustafsson winning. But with the kind of juice that is out there right now on this line, it's a little too extreme, because Manuwa is certainly a threat, and it's hard to know if this crazy streak of his might just keep going. You never know. So you got to be careful with this betting line. Manuwa's age and his style will probably work against him eventually. But yeah, it's a tough one. Maybe, once again, maybe some interesting props will present themselves, but it's tough for a straight up play.
So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for UFC Fight Night 37. Part 2 of the Premium Oddscast, featuring our premium bets for the event, will be out Friday evening around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned for that if you're an MMAOddsbreaker.com premium member. There's also a Bellator event taking place this weekend, so we'll likely have a free play to give out. So make sure to follow @Premium Oddscast on Twitter, because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you of our free bets via email if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsbreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Also, feel free to like our Premium Oddscast Facebook page. We post articles, show announcements, and plenty of other information there, so you can stay up to date on everything from us if you're interested. Last but not least, I have to plug fellow co-host Reed Kuhn's book, Fightnomics, which discusses the numbers, statistics, and budding trends behind mixed martial arts. You can purchase his book digitally or via paperback at Amazon.com. We also have a link to it on the MMAOddsbreaker.com homepage. Special thanks to our sponsor, 5 Dimes. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.